No Rest for the Wicked was my most anticipated game of last year, but I'm not here to tell you should try it. Actually, the opposite. To really understand why I was so excited about this random early access game, you gotta understand how much I loved their past projects. Before Moon Studios cracked the code on making the world's ugliest characters, I had a bit of an obsession with their previous franchise, the Ori series. The Will of the Wisps is still my all-time favorite game. It's short and sweet, which is all I can handle after all the brain rot obliterated my attention span. Its art direction is beautiful, and the way the game plays is smooth as butter. Oh yeah, the game is also hella depressing sometimes. And if you don't like this game, that's fine, you just probably eat glue. My chronic addiction to throwing money at this game is rivaled only by your average Genshin Impact player. I've bought both games in both digital and physical on every platform, all the soundtracks, both the collector's editions. Why does this one come with a stained glass window? What am I even gonna do with this? The plushie, a t-shirt that doesn't fit, oh, and this. His name is Ori, and he's expensive, so he counts. Okay, so maybe it's not quite as bad as Genshin players, but I do have the game as my wallpaper, just like they do. We just have different reasons for it. Anyways, with all that said, hopefully that explains why this trailer had me so hyped when it dropped at the 2023 Game Awards, and I only had to wait 4 months to try it.
Several months later.
Yeah, on launch day, I could only take about 4 hours of this game before I had to quit. The game had more bugs in it than an anthill. It ran about as well as Stephen Hawking. It was clearly designed around being online despite being as single player as my bed. And most annoyingly, the durability system that would have you thinking every weapon was forged out of only the finest Play-Doh. In a fit of rage and disappointment, I did something unspeakable. I left a bad review. But they seem to be taking the mountains of negative early feedback seriously, and they had a roadmap. And as gamers, we know that all games follow their roadmap, right? So I held out hope for the future and decided to wait it out.
One eternity later.
I think the best way to explain this game is to say it's extremely unfocused. It feels like the developers took a list of popular game genres and mechanics and tried to cram them all in a blender, and personally, in my objectively correct opinion, that's not a perfect way to cook up a game, but we'll talk more about that later. I want to start with something positive, and dear god, there's not enough positive words in my 3rd grade vocabulary to describe how stunning this game's art direction is. The textures try to imitate the look of a painting, you can see the shading and brushstrokes on every surface, but the lighting is where this game sets itself apart. The way the vibrant colors of the whispers and fire contrasts with the dark and muted landscape gives this game such a strong atmosphere. Every square inch of this game feels intentional. There are no big empty fields of nothingness, like other games. But oh boy, while the game might look pretty, the characters do not, and we finally have a game that dares to ask the question, what if the people of Sea of Thieves could look even more inbred? But enough of what the game looks like, how does it play? No Rest for the Wicked was clearly meant to be a Souls-like, and while they don't call it one, it is the second user tag after early access. But there are some important differences, like rather than getting your wallet stolen when you die like you live in Detroit, all your gear loses a chunk of its durability, like you live in Minecraft. Also, you don't have a set number of healing potions, it takes the Breath of the Wild route and has you slurping down 8 bowls of soup mid-combat because while the monsters are strong, clam chowder is stronger. Combat is the usual parry attack dodge roll that you'll be accustomed to if you've played anything, and it incorporates a stamina bar, but with a little twist. And that twist is that you have a serious case of asthma because this stamina wheel is shorter than Danny DeVito. You can get more stamina over time by spending your level up points, but no other game I've played has felt this restrictive. In a game like Elden Ring, you feel a lot more able to make decisions on how aggressive or careful to be, because you aren't wheezing from exhaustion after 2 swings. It doesn't stop the combat from being fun, but I do hope they buff your stamina in the future. On the bright side though, since the last time I played, those Play-Doh swords did get buffed, and now the durability really isn't much of a concern. Which is nice, because clocking into the repair grind after only getting 2 tries on a boss was very annoying. All the weapons are satisfying to use, and there's a decent variety so you can pick the one that fits your build, but personally, I think carefully picking items that have good synergy with your build is boring. I just use whatever looks cool, and it's been working alright, and if I die, I just say it's the controller's fault. Maybe I should just invest in a real controller. Nah, it's probably fine. Another difference from most Souls-likes is that the enemies don't respawn when you save at a whisper. Instead, the map has this shadowy fog that creeps into areas the more time you spend away from them. When you turn your back, the fog creeps in and the enemies and loot get reset. I really like this. It's a cool way to handle enemy respawns. But uh-oh, I've reached my happiness quota for today. Time to talk about the bad stuff. Since you have to wait for the fog to slowly respawn enemies, it's pretty annoying to farm XP, and it doesn't help that leveling up feels extremely slow after the first couple levels. Oh, and when you find a new weapon, you better hope you have the stats to use it, because otherwise you're in for hours of grinding. I don't mind this mechanic in games where you have a party of different classes, but I hate this mechanic in games where you only have one character and get forced into one class. Why do I need a PhD in using hammers? I'm not Bob the Builder. There's another little annoyance that comes with the way loot works here though. Sometimes rare loot will come with perks and bonuses to your stats, but they also balance it out with one huge negative trait, which is a good way to balance them in theory, but the downside is usually so bad that it just makes it not worth it. Like, pros, 5% more damage, 10% lighter weight, nice. Okay, now what about the downside? Oh, on second thought, I think I'll just stick with what I have. Just some examples, my regular one-handed sword is now so heavy you could confuse it with your mom. and it pushes me all the way from lightweight to heavyweight class, which in this game is a death sentence. Also, my armor takes away all of my focus points, so I basically don't get to play with half the combat mechanics since I decided not dying from stubbing my toe is more important. The last main thing I want to touch on is world building. There aren't a ton of cutscenes yet, but the ones we do have do a fantastic job at introducing the characters. The basic premise of the world is that the king died and his replacement is being manipulated by what's pretty much the Pope. There's a plague of monsters threatening the kingdom, and you play as a member of an outcast group of mysterious, magic-wielding monster killers. People hate you for being a member of this group, but they tolerate you because they need you to kill stuff for them. So in other words, this is literally The Witcher. Do you remember how earlier I called this game unfocused? Let's talk about that. This game has a lot of ideas, and they aren't bad, but they do feel like the kind of thing that should be added after the main content is done. Like, maybe I'm speaking totally out of line here, but why did going furniture shopping get added before a single new boss did? They also created an entire roguelike mode instead of expanding the campaign. The developers are talking about AI enemies that will learn how to exploit your playstyle, and pretty soon we're supposed to get a town building feature. To be clear, I'm not against this becoming Animal Crossing with violence, even if we already have that. And hey, maybe decorating my house is the stress relief I need after experiencing this dude's colossal hitboxes. But even if Happy Home Designer isn't exactly what I expected, it is a cool addition, but it's still one that doesn't need to be here while the core game is as shallow as a puddle. No Rest for the Wicked feels like it's lacking an identity of its own. I wasn't kidding about that Blender analogy from earlier. So much of this feels like an amalgamation of other games rather than a cohesive product on its own. Remember the quote, "A game for everyone is a game for no one"? Well, taking DNA from everything that's mildly popular is what the school thought does, not a good video game. What I'm saying is rather than trying to do everything okay, this game needs to find at least one thing it can do the best if it wants people to care about it. But hey, I'm still glad I decided to check out this game during its early access. I am disappointed by how little progress there's been in the last year, and if you read through the recent Steam reviews, you can see people are generally, not happy. The game is still riddled with bugs, and the combat needs a lot of balancing, but it's in early access. What do you expect? Updates maybe would be nice. But I know this studio can make some bangers, so while you absolutely shouldn't pay for it right now, I'm still holding out hope that someday it'll leave early access behind and set a new standard for the ARPG genre the same way their last game set the bar for the Metroidvania genre. Thanks for watching. Make sure you beat that subscribe button like you'd beat kids that do TikTok dances in public. The next video will probably be another one where I sift through the Steam news section like a scuba diver that got lost in a sewer. See you then.